to start?
Let's go!
Why would you? Why?
Because I'm ready.
Welcome back to another Boys Night In.
Bienvenidos nuevamente a Boys Night In.
As you can tell, we have once again switched locations.
Como pueden ver,
Haven't we
cambiamos
been here for like the past... Sorry, I don't know.
localidades otra vez.
No, last week we were in the basement.
Oh, we were.
¿De veras?
Yes.
Yeah, we were.
How do y'all not? You know what? I understand you not remembering it, but
Oye, tú me estás diciendo viejo porque no me acuerdo.
no, because you're busy and you always talk about how you forget things because you have so much on your
my
mind.
brain
Estamos en el sótano.
Yes.
Listen, my brain is filled with Japanese, okay? That's all it's filled with.
Okay, fair.
Ah, tú estás pensando en japonés. Konnichiwa.
No, you know what's worse? You know what's worse? When you
Ni hao.
speak to me in Spanish, when you speak to me in Spanish or something, my brain will want to respond in Japanese. Like, that's not the answer. I want to respond, like you'd be like,
Jan dice cuando le hablamos en español quiere responder en japonés.
y
Tú
también,
eres mucho por Jan.
no, y también es que cuando estoy pensando en una palabra, yo pienso en japonés. So, algo como no sé, como amigo, es tomodachi en japonés y pienso en tomodachi, no amigo.
Okay, so when you think in Japanese, and so whenever someone asks you something in Spanish, you want to reply in Japanese. Eso pasa cuando yo tomaba francés, era lo mismo, o sea, porque ellos te acondicionan a pensar en ese idioma. They condition you to think in that language, porque eso te ayuda a aprenderlo. Entonces, a veces uno, como tú dices, como que se le cruzaba y te decían algo y tú empezabas como que, oh, espérate, no, ese no era el idioma, pero qué bueno. Ajá, estamos en Boys Night In.
Yep. Sorry. How you guys' weeks been?
Pretty good.
Bien, siempre trabajando, ¿qué vamos a hacer?
I know you.
Pero estamos bien, ¿sabes algo?
What's up?
Agradecido. Mi semana ha sido una semana de agradecimiento. I have been grateful this week.
You know, funny you should mention that.
Ajá.
Because I don't know if you know, but this month we've been talking about gratitude.
Oh, este mes estamos hablando de gratitud.
Oh, wow.
Wow, ¿tú sabías?
No, I had no idea.
No.
Yep. And guess what the topic for today entails?
Pero wait, espérate, no me digas. El tema de hoy. La gratitud.
You got it right.
Gratitude.
I don't know how he did it, but he got it right.
Ajá.
Specifically today, though, I wanted to talk about why it's important to have gratitude, be grateful.
Hoy estamos hablando de por qué es importante ser agradecido.
Those of you tuned in to Sunday would know why, but continue.
Y los que estuvieron con nosotros el domingo saben por qué.
Remember what we talked about on Sunday?
Sí, el local, claro.
Right. That's one example. Good example. High five.
Thank you.
Yo estoy agradecido por el árbol tan lindo que mami decoró.
I keep telling her that she needs to be like an interior designer.
Every day,
¿Verdad que sí?
every year, I feel like there's less and less green and more red.
Mami debería tener su propio show en HTV. Si hay algún ejecutivo de HTV que nos está escuchando, por favor,
Look at this
miren el
entire thing right
miren
here.
el árbol, nos pueden contactar, ¿ok?
And please give us a contract because I like the.
No, a mami que se lo vaya.
We accept payment in cash or PayPal.
Pero ¿sabes cuál es el problema? You know, the problem is que mami va a estar frente a la cámara y nosotros somos los que vamos a estar montando las cosas.
That's fine for me.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, John's gonna end up on camera at some point. Anyway.
We're
Yo, he's that type of guy who will find a way on camera.
No, I will. It's not even.
We're gonna be the muscle. We're gonna be putting it all together. And she's in front of the
It's
camera.
not even intentional. It's just I end up always in front of the camera for like whatever reason.
The camera just loves it.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't even realize I'm being recorded. I'm like, oh, okay.
Pero estamos agradecidos. Si está muy bello el árbol.
It's almost as beautiful as me. But almost.
Casi
tan bello como tú. Oh, wow. Wow.
This is how you know he has the Reyes in him, because he's extraordinarily humble.
Exactly.
Es bien humilde, ¿verdad? Sí, wow.
Así es como tú sabes que él tiene lo de Reyes.
But I think think as we were saying, I think just being able, just the importance of Thanksgiving. Obviously Thursday is Thanksgiving, or I guess what Thursday, November.
Yeah, it's Thursday.
November
25th.
Thank you, November 25th.
It's just it's dependent on Thursday.
Yeah, but if anyone's watching and I say Thursday, then they never know. Maybe it'll be December. They're like, this Thursday is Thanksgiving? No, it's November 25th.
You think it's December in another part of the world?
Yeah.
Bueno, es...
On Mars.
Oh,
Yo creo que la gente se lo olvida Thanksgiving. Mars. En Marte.
yeah, he said that because Mars has a different year.
Oh.
Because it travels around the sun longer. Yeah.
Sí, el año de ellos es más.
Yeah, they're in
400 y pico de días.
They're still in 1980s. They're still in the 1980s. So.
Sí, porque acuérdate que un año se va acumulando, claro.
Yeah. They're still in the 1980s though, so once they catch up, they'll realize.
O de veras, o sea que quiera Marte para poder recordar los 1980s.
Don't get past your name.
Pero entonces, la importancia de ser agradecido, the importance of being grateful.
Right, and I want to talk about this because I'm going to be frank with you guys here. We live, can't believe I'm saying
We live in a society?
Yes. We live in a society. We live really in a country, I want to say.
Ajá, vivimos en un país
that, for better or worse, has been incredibly privileged throughout its history.
Sí, para bien o para mal, ¿verdad? Depende de cómo la gente lo tome, es un país que ha sido muy privilegiado a través de la historia.
And I'm going to say this, and some of you may look at me weird. Every single person who was born in the United States, who lives in the United States, is incredibly privileged.
Todo el que ha nacido o vive en Estados Unidos es muy privilegiado, son personas muy privilegiadas.
I say more blessed.
I was gonna...
Yo, my bad, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That does not mean we don't go through our own struggles.
Eso no significa que no tenemos nuestros problemas.
And I'm not taking away from people that go through their own problems.
Y no estamos quitándole a la gente que pasan situaciones difíciles en este país.
But what I want us to understand is that many of the freedoms we enjoy in this country,
Pero quiero que entendamos que las libertades que disfrutamos en este país,
or even some of the basic the basic necessities that we have access to in this country,
o el acceso a diferentes cosas que tenemos en este país,
have, I mean, not very many other countries have them.
no muchos otros países tienen eso.
And I wanted to talk about this because it's important for our generation to understand where we came from and how we got here.
Y es importante para que las diferentes generaciones entiendan, cómo llegamos aquí.
Speaking of privilege, here's the four-legged prince himself.
Sí, nuestro
What are you doing?
nuestro amigo de cuatro patas que a veces nos visita.
But I've noticed, I don't know about you two, I've noticed this increasing sentiment where people seem to devalue the accomplishments of others or seem to devalue their humanity because they were blessed in some way. So let's say they're wealthier.
Sí, como hay personas que disminuyen la experiencia de otro porque a lo mejor tenga un poquito más o algo así.
And I've also heard that a lot of people will try to cite the Bible and saying that God only wants us to be poor. God only loves
I can
poor
tell you
people.
exactly what they cite because
I
I heard it today.
You heard it today?
Hay personas que dicen que en la Biblia que Dios quiere que seamos pobres.
No, because they're saying, because remember when Jesus is talking
Yeah,
about...
let me say. Basically, remember when he says that it's easier for you're gonna tell me this.
For a camel.
Yeah, for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle, than for a rich person to rich person to go to heaven.
Sí, cuando citan de que es más fácil que un camello entre por el ojo de una aguja que un rico entre al cielo.
They always cite it. They always.
Siempre, ese es el versículo que
I heard it
siempre.
today.
Sí.
I will continue hearing it every single
Hoy lo
time.
escuchaste, sí. Está mal interpretado, pero
Sure.
ustedes saben eso. Pero, sí, es el que cita.
I just laugh because I'm like, okay, yeah, well, okay, I've seen this 20 times. I've already seen this.
Now, obviously,
20
as Pastor said, that's misinterpreted, and I'll give him the opportunity to answer that because I know he loves talking about apologetics and he loves talking about how to interpret passages of the Bible, but you'll see this oftentimes, this attitude, especially among some Christians, where they really have this, I want to say, disdain for people who are better off.
Y hay personas que tienen, o sea, que no, como que no disminuyen a personas que están bien, ¿verdad? Económicamente.
And the reason why I'm talking about this, sort of alongside what I was talking about when we live in a blessed country,
Y la razón por la cual menciono esto y digo que vivimos en un país bendecido,
is because I want to nail home this point.
porque quiero hacer este punto.
It does not matter what your background is.
No importa cuál es tu trasfondo.
I don't care if you were born into an ultra mega rich family.
No importa si naciste en una familia rica
I don't care if you were born in the poorest family in the worst conditions on earth.
o si naciste en una familia sumamente pobre.
I don't care because God does not care.
A mí no me interesa porque a Dios no le interesa tampoco.
Once again, we've said this 1,000 times. At the foot of the cross, we are all equal.
Y lo que quiero decir es que, como hemos dicho muchas veces, a los pies de la cruz todos somos iguales.
Just because you were born poor does not mean that you are now the greatest victim or the greatest sufferer of all.
El que tú hayas nacido pobre no significa que eres la víctima más grande o el que más ha sufrido en la vida.
But also, just because you were born rich doesn't mean you're better than everyone else.
Pero a la misma vez, el que tú hayas nacido rico no significa que eres mejor que los demás.
People who have wealth, who have money, still go through their own problems.
La gente que tiene dinero también tiene sus problemas. Eso es muy cierto.
Because at the end of the day, people like to say this, money can't solve all your problems, but for some reason, if someone who's rich comes and complains, I'm having a hard time doing this, oh, you're rich, why are you complaining? That sounds like a rich person problem.
Pero por alguna razón, cuando escuchan a algún rico quejarse, la gente dice, tú eres rico porque te estás quejando.
And yes, I understand that some people may start complaining about like, well, I don't have the newest iPhone, or I don't have the newest Louis Vuitton bag. I get that.
I wish for that.
Perdí señal, no tengo señal.
Yeah.
And I know that people complain, alguna gente se queja que no tengo el teléfono, el iPhone más moderno, o no tengo señal, o no tengo tal cosa.
But not everyone is like that.
Pero no todo el mundo es así.
And I know Pastor has said this many times before, you can find rich people who are exceedingly humble and poor people who are exceedingly braggadocious, jealous, or just very, very prideful.
Did you use braggadocious unironically?
What do you mean on that?
That's
a real word.
I know, that's the second time I've heard that word ever used.
Porque,
That's the second time I've ever heard that word used.
como el pastor ha dicho, hay
Is that like an
personas,
80s word?
Yeah.
hay personas de dinero que son sumamente humildes, como hay personas de escasos recursos que son sumamente arrogantes. Y la palabra que él utilizó, braggadocious, es una palabra de los años 80 y por eso Jan estaba molesto.
I didn't even know it was from the 80s.
It's funny though, it's funny. My dad knows that.
A mí no me molesta.
Pastor,
Yeah, I know.
Pastor used it when he was younger. Yeah, I bet Pastor.
No, he used bad a lot.
Yeah.
Bro, that's so bad.
Nah.
No hablemos de las palabras de los 80.
Didn't you guys use tight too?
Había muchas palabras que, wow.
But I think what you're saying stems a lot from some of the issues. And I do kind of have an issue with many people always having to find the most extremes of suffering to compare to even the most minuscule things. It can be incredibly painful to stub your toe, but then someone will come in and say, well, children are dying in Africa. I'm like, but I just stubbed my toe.
Como hay gente que a veces se van a los extremos de sufrimiento, por ejemplo, me pegué un dedo del pie y la gente dice, sí te pegaste un dedo del pie, pero en África hay niños muriendo.
Yeah.
And while it's fine to kind of put that into perspective, I don't think I don't think it's very productive or anything really to keep comparing the problems that someone from America has to compare to someone from I don't know, someone like someone from the Middle East has.
Y aunque no se pueden comparar a veces los problemas que tenemos aquí o digamos en el Medio Oriente, de comparación.
Because I think it all follows a comparative suffering.
Yo creo que también el sufrimiento es comparativo.
Because to me, and I was talking about this with my friend, what is suffering, because to someone, to a child, maybe the peak suffering that they've ever felt is a paper cut.
Y yo hablaba con un compañero mío y le preguntaba qué es el sufrir, porque por ejemplo, a lo mejor para un niño el sufrimiento más extremo que ellos han sentido es que se han cortado con un papel.
Maybe they'd say the paper cut is a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale.
A lo mejor ellos dicen que es un 10 de 10 en la escala del dolor.
But you, who has a lot more wisdom and not more knowledge about what pain can entail,
Pero tú que a lo mejor tienes más experiencia y más sabiduría en cuanto a lo que es el dolor,
understands that that's not, in retrospect, that's not really painful.
entiendes que en realidad eso no es tan doloroso ni causa tanto sufrimiento como otras cosas.
I think to me that's what God sees when he sees us. I mean, Him with His infinite wisdom and experience sees us complaining about something like stubbing our toe. And you know, in His infinite wisdom and experience, He realizes in retrospect that's not painful, but we can't compare the things that we went through to the exact same thing that Jesus went through.
Entonces, yo me imagino a Dios en su infinita sabiduría mirándonos de la misma forma, cuando a veces nos quejamos, por ejemplo, que me pegué con un dedo del pie, y él pensando, bueno, no es tanto sufrimiento como el sufrimiento que pasó Jesús.
And that comparison is fraught to me because obviously we can't. I mean, obviously you can experience the thing that Jesus did. We can go through it, but now as where we are at a point in society, I don't think anybody has ever really felt the pain that Jesus went through.
Y aunque podemos quizás, ¿cómo se dice? A lo mejor podemos sentir un poco algunos sufrimientos que pasó Jesús, pero creo que estamos en un punto de la sociedad donde nadie en realidad entiende todo lo que él sufrió.
And I think that can be a good thing and a bad thing, but I think it can be a good thing because it shows that what Jesus went through is something that we don't have to do, that He forgave our sins, that we're thankful for Him that He forgave our sins.
Pero pensándolo bien, le damos gracias porque Jesús fue el que sufrió todas estas cosas, pero a través de ese sufrimiento llevó nuestros pecados.
So whenever I hear someone comparing one pain to another pain,
así que cuando escucho a alguien comparar un dolor con otro,
something that we can experience, such as starving children in Africa or war-torn countries like places in the Middle East.
Algo que nosotros no experimentamos aquí, como por ejemplo niños muriéndose de hambre en África o países en guerra en el Medio Oriente.
I always think if Jesus would do the exact same, if every time we complain to Him, that He'd be like, oh well, I got stabbed, I got killed, I got whipped, I got all these kinds of things.
Entonces yo me imagino si Jesús haría lo mismo y diría, ¿sabes qué? A mí me azotaron y a mí me hicieron todas estas cosas.
So I think that just comparison is a little fraught.
Es una comparación nada más lo que estamos haciendo.
And also just tag on with that. Great points, by the way.
Thank you.
We in this nation, we as a people, we have a tendency sometimes to forget about the past very quickly, and that also comes about because of the rise of social media and smartphones and the internet. We want sort of instant gratification, and it's very easy for us to move from one thing to the other.
También me he dado cuenta que en este país como que nos olvidamos del pasado bien rápido, y en parte eso es por las redes sociales y como todo lo queremos ahora, gratificación instantánea, pues a veces nos olvidamos del pasado.
Because, I mean, I know people talk about, obviously, the September 11th attacks. That was only a little over 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Hablamos de los ataques del 9/11 y eso fue hace 20 años
20
atrás.
years and like 2 months.
Yeah,
20 años y 2 meses.
Yeah, and 20 years, frankly, in history is a very short amount of time.
You're older than 20 years.
Yeah, I'm by 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I am older than the attacks
By a
on
few months.
September 11th by a few months.
Y si vemos en el contexto de la historia,
And
9 meses,
yeah.
cuando eso pasó. En el contexto de la historia, 20 años no es mucho tiempo.
It's not. And even and sorry, I don't mean, I just want to say, and also with that, adding on to what he's saying, like slavery, for example, was only I say only, but only 100 years ago. 150 years ago.
156 years ago is when it ended. Terminó hace 156 años. En Estados Unidos.
And mind you, America is way older than that.
Well, 200 and...
Okay, it's still
It's
old.
by like 50 something years because
Okay, that's still a lot. Pastor is less than 50 years. Okay, that's not a lot. He's
No.
old.
Yo pensé que tú ibas a decir que yo soy más viejo que Estados
I was
Unidos.
about to say he was here during the Revolutionary War.
Yo no estaba en la guerra
He literally
revolucionaria.
met George Washington.
Sí, no, yo era uno de los oficiales de George Washington.
Exactly.
But I think we also seem to forget that history. I mean, even in the past like 1,000 years, so much history has happened. Even in the past 1,000
Sí,
years.
pero el punto es que cuando miramos, por ejemplo, 1000 años, en 1000 años hemos visto tanta historia.
And I want to emphasize this point with, I was reading this philosophical paper by a philosopher named Mary Estelle, who lived in the 17th century, so that would be the 1800s.
Y estaba leyendo un papel de de filosofía de, ¿cómo se llama?
Mary Estelle.
Mary Estelle.
A-S-T-E-L-L.
Yeah,
Okay, Mary Estelle. Y vivió en los 1800
In Inglaterra.
en Inglaterra.
And she noted that people had this, you're going to laugh when you hear this, people have this tendency, especially Pastor's going to laugh, people have this tendency
Did
to...
you say 17th century?
Yeah.
That would have been the 1600s.
Sorry, 1600s.
En los 1600.
I always flip them.
Sí, en los 1600.
I was like, this is,
I was wrong.
Continue.
No, está bien.
But people have this tendency to, when they're wrong, they like to double down because they don't like to think that what they thought was incorrect this entire time, and so they just double down on their beliefs even when they're erroneous.
¿Cómo hay gente que cuando están equivocados, en vez de admitir que están equivocados, como que se agarran más de su punto de vista?
And so that's why people who are prejudiced, especially when they're proven wrong, double down on the prejudice.
Y por eso hay gente que cuando están prejuiciadas y se les deja ver que están mal, ellos como que tienden a doblar o doblegar el... No, ¿cómo se llama eso? Como que se arraigan más a su posición.
And I say this because this is one of my favorite verses of the Bible. I believe Solomon said it. There's nothing new under the sun.
Entonces, uno de mis versículos favoritos de la palabra es que Salomón lo dijo, que no hay nada nuevo bajo el sol.
I said it.
Humans keep repeating the same things over and over and over again.
Los seres humanos seguimos repitiendo lo mismo y lo mismo. Y fíjate que el enemigo, ¿ok? La gente piensa que el enemigo es omnipotente como Dios. People think that the enemy is...
People think that the enemy is as omnipotent as God.
Él no es omnipotente.
He's not omnipotent.
Dios no tiene competencia.
God has no competition.
Dios no tiene competencia, mi gente.
God has no competition.
Pero el enemigo lleva tanto tiempo observando a la humanidad
But the enemy has spent a long time observing humanity,
que él sabe que somos criaturas de hábito.
and he knows that we are creatures of habit.
Y por eso dice, basado en cómo tú estás actuando, yo puedo predecir que tú vas a reaccionar de esta forma.
And that's why he can observe us and say, you know what, because you act in this way, I can determine that you're going to act like this if I do this.
Y es lo que sucede muchas veces.
And that's what happens a lot of the time.
And I think also tying it back to why we should be so thankful, it's because of the fact that whatever suffering that we're going through at this moment.
Y también, volviendo otra vez al punto de por qué debemos estar agradecidos, porque el sufrimiento que estamos pasando ahora,
We can tell Jesus about it. We can pray about it. We can talk about it.
podemos orar y hablarle decírselo a nuestro Señor,
And He will understand that pain.
y Él va a entender ese dolor.
That's why I believe we should be thankful, because He is able to understand what we go through.
Porque Él va a poder entender lo que nosotros estamos pasando. Fíjate que a diferencia de lo que decíamos, yo sé que hiciste una comparación, pero a diferencia de otra gente que dice, tú no sabes eso, yo he pasado más. Jesús, pudiendo decirlo, no lo dice, sino que se asocia entiende el dolor nuestro.
But notice that, I know you brought this up as an example, as a comparison, but Jesus has the ability to, because people will want to compare how much they've suffered with others and say, I've suffered more than you. Jesus could do that very well and say, well, actually, I've suffered more than all of you. But he doesn't do that. He instead relates himself to us and says, I understand your pain.
Amén. Todos los que se están conectando, Dios les bendiga. Estás en Voice Night In.
God bless to all of you who have connected or are connected.
I actually,
Como pueden ver, hoy tenemos 4 boys.
As you can
de
see,
4 patas.
we have 4 boys here today.
Que está aquí dormidito, pues es que él le gusta el calientito de él. de la chimenea.
Who's here sleeping because he likes the heat from the chimney.
Sí, entonces como estamos aquí se acomodó, pero normalmente no me hace caso.
And so since we're here, he decided to get comfortable, but usually he doesn't pay attention.
But no, I think we've really touched on really why.
Sí, fíjate, también cuando somos agradecidos, eso nos ayuda a mantenernos humildes.
Also, when we are grateful, it allows us to remain humble.
Cuando somos agradecidos, vivimos vidas más llenas.
When we are grateful, we live more fulfilling lives.
¿Por qué? Porque entendemos que lo que tenemos no es algo que no es un privilegio, sino porque Dios ha permitido que lo tengamos.
Why? Because we understand that what we have is not a privilege, it's something that God has allowed us to have.
Incluyendo lo malo,
Including the bad,
que a veces Dios utiliza para traer un bien.
which sometimes God uses to bring about a good.
Hoy escuchaba una historia, cuando estaba en la radio, escuchaba una historia
Today, while I was listening to the radio, I heard a story
que yo no la sabía.
that I didn't know.
De hecho, yo dije, tengo que chequear esto.
In fact, I said, you know what, I need to look this up.
Y fue que antes de que llegaran los peregrinos,
And it was that before the pilgrims even came
aquí a Estados Unidos,
here to the U.S.,
llegaron otros ingleses
there were other Englishmen,
y ellos se llevaron a varios de los indígenas, se los llevaron rehenes.
and they took some of the indigenous people captive. They took some of the indigenous people captive,
Y a un joven se lo vendieron a los españoles
and one young man was sold to the Spanish,
y terminó en Latinoamérica
and he ended up in Latin America,
y después terminó otra vez en Inglaterra.
and then he ended up again in England,
Y él siempre anhelaba volver a su casa.
and he'd always dreamed of going back home.
Y el que lo tenía era un monje
And the one who had him was a monk,
y le enseñó acerca de Dios y le habló de la Biblia.
and he spoke to him about God and the Bible.
Y le dijo, si tú te portas bien, yo te garantizo que yo te voy a enviar otra vez a tu casa.
And he said, if you behave, I guarantee you that I'll send you back home.
Eventualmente volvió a Estados Unidos,
Eventually, he returned to the United States.
pero fue muy devastador para él cuando vio que había una enfermedad llegó y murieron todos los de su tribu,
But it
o los
was,
de su villa, los de su ciudad.
it was a
Aldea.
great shock to him when he went back and realized that a variety of diseases wiped out the vast majority of his tribe.
Y este joven se preguntaba, ¿cómo Dios puede permitir estas cosas?
And this young man asked himself, how can God allow these things?
Pero cuando llegaron los peregrinos,
But when the pilgrims arrived,
de hecho, esta historia de este joven indígena fue como 10 años más o menos antes de que llegaran los peregrinos.
in fact, the story of this young Native American man took place around 10 years before the arrival of the pilgrims.
Pero los peregrinos
But the
que
pilgrims
salieron de Inglaterra,
who left England,
que estaban orando y pidiéndole a Dios que los guiara,
who were praying to God and asking for His guidance,
cuando llegan a lo que hoy conocemos como Estados Unidos,
when they arrived to what we now know as the United States,
con quien se encontraron fue con ese joven,
the one that they found themselves with was that young man
quien les habló en inglés
who spoke to them in English
y quien les enseñó a sembrar.
and who taught them how to plant.
Y de hecho, el gobernador de esa época, que era uno de los peregrinos, dijo, Dios hizo provisión para nosotros.
And in fact, the governor of the pilgrims at that time had said, God has provided for us.
Porque les proveyó un joven indígena
Because He gave them a young Native American man
que les habló en su idioma
who spoke to them in their
y
language
les enseñó cómo sobrevivir en esta tierra.
and taught them how to survive on this land.
O sea, que aún en las malas circunstancias,
So even in the middle of these bad situations,
como le tocó a este joven,
as what happened to this young man,
Dios estaba obrando.
God was working.
Y yo creo que por eso es tan importante que nosotros seamos agradecidos.
And I think that's why it's so important for us to be so grateful.
Porque en medio de las circunstancias malas, Dios está trabajando.
Because in the middle of the worst circumstances, God is still working.
Y en las buenas también está trabajando.
And even in the good situations.
Y cuando somos agradecidos,
And when we are grateful,
cuando llegan los momentos malos,
when those difficult moments come,
nosotros, para ponerlo en términos que la gente entienda,
to sort of put in terms we can understand,
lo enfrentamos con una actitud positiva.
we face it with a positive attitude.
Porque decimos, Dios va a proveer.
Because we say God will provide.
Dios me va a ayudar.
God will help me.
Dios nos va a guiar.
God will guide us.
Así como estos peregrinos que no sabían con qué se iban a encontrar.
Just like these pilgrims who didn't know what they would find.
Pero dijeron, Dios va a proveer para nosotros.
But they said God will provide for us.
Y les trajo uno que les habló en su idioma.
And he brought them someone who was able to speak in their language.
Padres,
Parents,
vamos a modelar esta actitud de gratitud.
let's model
This attitude of gratitude.
this attitude of gratitude.
Que nuestros hijos vean que nosotros somos agradecidos en todo.
So that our children can understand that we are grateful in all situations.
Que estamos agradecidos por ellos.
That we are grateful for them.
Que nuestros hijos no son perfectos, pero nosotros tampoco.
That our children aren't perfect, but neither are we.
Pero que estamos agradecidos de los hijos que Dios nos ha dado.
But that we are grateful for the children that God has given to us.
Porque Dios tiene un plan y un propósito con todos ellos.
Because God has a plan and a purpose for all of them.
Por ejemplo, Kevin es un poco más callado como yo y tranquilo.
For instance, Kevin is much more quiet and calmer like myself.
Pero Jan es la alegría del hogar.
But John is the party at the house.
Él le gusta hablar y le gusta hacer sus chistes.
He likes to talk and he likes to joke.
Pero nosotros entendemos que Dios está utilizándolo a él en su forma de ser.
But we also know that God is using him in according to his personality and his character.
Como Dios usa a Kevin y tiene planes con Kevin según también su forma de ser.
Like how God is going to use Kevin and will work through Kevin in his own through his own character.
Así que no comparemos a nuestros hijos, sino que digamos, Señor, gracias por los hijos que me has dado, que son diferentes, pero gracias.
So let's not compare our children. Let's say, God, thank you for the children that you've given me who are different and seek you.
So I think with that,
Yo creo que con eso estamos bien. Mañana tenemos ayuno y oración.
tomorrow we have prayer and fasting.
Este viernes no vamos a tener discipulado,
This Friday we will not have discipleship.
ya que vamos a pasar en familia, vamos a dar la oportunidad de que todo el mundo pase en familia.
Thursday is Thanksgiving and we want to spend time with our family and we want everyone to spend time with their family as well.
Pero el domingo a las 10:30 de la mañana volvemos, estamos agradecidos por el local nuevo que estamos.
But Sunday we have church at 10:30 once again and we're thankful for our new location
A las 10:30 hora del centro.
at 10:30 Central Time.
Y el próximo lunes estaremos aquí nuevamente, primero a las 10 con Hablemos Mujer y luego a las 6 con Voice Night.
And next Monday we'll be here at 10 o'clock Central Time with Women's Talk and again here at 6 for Boys Night In.
Recuerden que los videos están en YouTube y en Rumble.
Remember that the videos are on YouTube and Rumble,
También en nuestra página cibernética houseofmercykc.org.
as well as our website, houseofmercykc.org.
Así que Dios les bendiga y que la paz de Dios sea sobre todos ustedes.
So God bless you, may His peace be over you.